Hello and welcome to the Rambler Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Smith, and I'm excited to share with you a new series we're going to launch on the podcast called Info Sessions. These info sessions will be short conversations, roughly about 15 minutes or so, in which we're going to highlight a particular program offered at Cathedral Prep to give you more information about it. These programs could pertain to admissions, academics, advancement, athletics, student life, etc. We'll put out these episodes in the new series from time to time as a way to educate you further on the great things that Cathedral Prep is doing to serve our mission. So let's get started in this first episode as part of our new series, where today we are going to highlight our tax credit program. Hello and welcome to episode number 17 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. On this episode of the podcast, we are starting our new series called Info Sessions, and today we are joined by Katie Dufala, Villa Maria Academy class of 1998, as she talks to us about the opportunities for individuals to participate in the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program. After Katie's time at Villa, she went on to graduate from the University of Pittsburgh in 2001. She is a senior tax preparer at Felix Gloekler, and she has been working at the firm now for 17 years. She does business and personal tax returns, as well as payroll and bookkeeping. So when it comes to evaluating the tax credit programs offered by the state, Katie was an easy choice for me to reach out and bring on the podcast. So just want to say, Katie, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Before we get started into all the details of the program, I want to make sure your listeners who may hear that we're going to be talking about taxes and credits and think, oh, this is boring stuff, I don't need to listen to this. I want to make sure they know there really is a great opportunity through these programs to lower the tax you pay into the state while benefiting Cathedral Prep. So just hang in there for a few minutes and get some information to see if this could benefit you.
Absolutely. Thank you for prefacing that, because I remember when I first started to get involved working and learning about it, I was like, oh my gosh, this seems daunting. But it's actually very simple when you break it down. So that's what we're going to do here on this episode of the podcast, is just kind of go through a lot of the frequently asked questions with the program and kind of make it very simple and easy to understand. So yeah, let's dive right into it. First question that I have for you is, what is the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program, and what is the OSTC program, the Opportunity Scholarship Tax Credit Program?
Yeah, so as you said, there's two tax programs, the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program, or the EITC, and the Opportunity Scholarship Tax Program, or the OSTC. From a taxpayer/donor standpoint, these programs are essentially the same. The difference comes for the certain educational institutions only can qualify for one of the programs, but for our case, Prep qualifies to receive funding under both of these programs, so we're going to lump them together and treat them as the same. Pennsylvania set up these programs to provide tax credits to businesses and, as we'll get into now, individuals who contribute to approved educational institutions such as Prep. And what this means is that by making a donation through this program, you reduce your PA tax liability. One of the most common questions we get as tax preparers is, how can I pay less tax? How can I send less money into the government? And this program is a great way to achieve this by essentially diverting the amount of money you owe to PA to Prep, and then therefore reducing your tax liability.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for explaining that. I know it's interesting because it's only a Pennsylvania program. It's not like a national or federal thing. It's highlighted by the state of Pennsylvania. So it's great that we're fortunate enough to benefit from a program like this to help the families at Prep. So how is it that Cathedral Prep can benefit from the program?
Yeah, so like I said, under both of these programs, Prep qualifies to receive funding that then must be used towards scholarships to eligible students. When you donate through this program, 100% of your donation goes to Prep. There's no administration charge that gets knocked off. Every dollar that you donate goes directly to Prep.
Excellent. And I know on the business side of it, ever since Pennsylvania kind of enrolled this, we've been pretty fortunate and blessed to have some businesses that participate in this program over the years that have really helped our families and the students here. But now you mentioned, also individuals can participate. Can you tell us how it is that individuals are able to participate in the program?
Yeah, so when the program was initially established, it was only for businesses and to pay to the credits applied against business tax. And then a few years later, they amended the rules so that the credits could be passed through to individuals. And so those programs are still available on the business side. It is a different process than what we're going to be focusing on today.
Right.
When those rules were amended, special purpose entities, also known as SPEs, were created. And an SPE is a partnership that exists solely for the purpose of earning tax credits that then they pass through to the individual members. So now, as an individual who may not own a business, or maybe their business doesn't make sense or was unable to participate in the program directly, they can become members of this SPE and donate through that LLC and receive the tax credits passed through to them.
Absolutely. And it's very fortunate that they amended those rules. They allowed the opportunity for individuals to participate in this. So it wasn't just on the business side. And now that's the initiative that we're taking at Prep, is to continue to expand the program, now focusing on the individuals as we're doing so in this episode of the podcast. So what is the Central Pennsylvania Scholarship Fund?
The Central PA Scholarship Fund is a nonprofit that administers various SPEs. So Prep has its own SPE, and the Central PA Scholarship Fund administers this at no cost to the school. So they handle all of the managing of the membership, the collection of the funds, the distribution of the funds back to the school, and all of this comes at no cost to Prep, which is great.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And they're fantastic to work with. I kind of liaison myself between Central PA and the donors who contribute to this program. And they're just fantastic individuals there that are really just looking to help us and do great work there. Now, next question. Are there any eligibility requirements for individuals to participate in the program?
Yes, there are a few requirements, and this is a great time to point out that anyone interested in doing this program should make sure to consult their tax professional. Right. To, one, not only make sure they're eligible, but make sure they're deciding the right amount to contribute. But in order to participate, you must have a minimum of $115,000 in state taxable income. And this is whether you file a single tax return or a joint tax return. You must have $115,000 of taxable income for Pennsylvania. There is another requirement. One of the taxpayers must either work for or own a for-profit company. And so there are exceptions to that. If you and your spouse both work for nonprofits or you're retired, you are not automatically excluded from participating. The rules state that if you are owner of or a shareholder of a company that operates in Pennsylvania, you can still be eligible for this. And what they explain is that publicly traded corporations qualify for this. So if you're retired but own a share of Microsoft which operates in Pennsylvania, you are eligible for this program. So that really opens up, because a lot of people through retirement plans or other ways do own stocks in companies that operate in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. If you have any questions about that, again, consult your investment advisor or your tax preparer to make sure that you qualify, even if you're retired or both work for nonprofits.
And it's pretty amazing that those are really the only two requirements, for the program. It's just if you qualify, apply, and you're most likely to get in. So, having done so, now what is the process for applying for the program?
So if you're interested in participating, the first step is to reach out to Jimmy, because he will facilitate this whole program. But now is the perfect time to be thinking about it, because a lot of people are either filing their 2022 taxes or pulling together their information. And so you can really look at what your Pennsylvania taxable income and tax liability were for 2022 and assess if you think that amount will be similar for 2023. And that will help you decide what your donation amount should be. You can get a 90% tax credit of your donation. And so once you decide how much you would like to donate, you fill out a joinder agreement, which is a very simple one-page document that basically you put your name, address, social security number, and the amount you want to donate and signature. Once you know the amount you want to donate, it takes less than 5 minutes to fill out. You send that to Jimmy, who will send that on to the scholarship fund and coordinate with the SPE about getting your admission. And the form is basically a reservation for the amount of credits that you're applying for. After that, once they receive that information, they will send you a letter accepting you into the SPE and approving your credits and request your contribution. You send that money in within 60 days, and they handle distributing that money back out to prep and the forms required in tax filings after that.
And one thing I'll note with that too is they do 2 different rounds during the year. They do a spring round and a fall round. And the credits are awarded on a first come, first served basis. So I like to tell people it's not urgent, but the sooner or later you do it, the faster we can get you those credits reserved. Because once they allocate all the credits per round, they don't accept any more new applications. So if you're interested in the program, don't wait on it. Take the steps to get the form filled out. Like Katie said, it takes less than 5 minutes to be able to fill out and get over to me. But so then, all right, so let's say, I apply, I get accepted, make the contribution this year. What happens next tax season for me?
So next tax season, if you contribute during 2023, about this time in 2024, it's usually mid to end of March, maybe even early April, depending on how things fall, you will receive a K-1 from the SPE. And on that K-1, there's 2 forms, the federal and the Pennsylvania form. The Pennsylvania form will reflect the credit amount that you received from your donation. It'll be the only number on there, and you report that. There is a form on your Pennsylvania tax return for other credits, and that's where that amount gets reported and will carry over to your Pennsylvania tax return. For the federal portion, it will reflect a charitable contribution in the amount of 10% of your donation. And the reason it's 10% is because essentially 90% of your donation you are getting back in the form of tax credits against your liability in PA. So when it's all said and done, you're really only out of pocket that 10% to that organization because you did receive tax credits for 90% of it. So the IRS only lets you deduct 10% of that donation, which is, again, the amount that you are really out of pocket. And so you can deduct 10% on your federal tax return.
Right. And Cathedral Prep, we receive 100% of those funds, so nothing gets changed there on that side of it. But on your personal tax side, that's how it plays out. Great. Well, I appreciate the time, Katie. I got just one last question for you on this. Do you mind sharing with us a little example on how this works?
Sure. And I'm going to use round numbers just for easy math.
Okay.
So say when you go to file your tax return, your tax liability to PA is $5,000. If you decide to donate through this program to PrEP $5,000, you will get a $4,500 credit on your PA tax return. So on your tax return, it would show a $5,000 liability, a $4,500 credit, and then you would owe $500. Now, most people, when they file their tax returns, if you have a W-2, your employers are required to withhold PA taxes from your paychecks and send that money in. And so a lot of people might be listening thinking, well, I never owe PA because all my income is reported on my W-2, or maybe you owe minimal from interest or dividend income. So why do I care? And the answer is your withholdings can be refunded to you. So if your tax liability is $5,000 and you had $5,000 withheld from your W-2s because that was your only source of income, your tax return will show a $5,000 liability, $5,000 withheld, and now a $4,500 tax credit, which would result in a $4,500 refund to you. So when you go to file your tax return next year, because of this credit, you will get a refund of $4,500 from PA when you file your taxes. And so essentially you're getting that money that you donated back, and so it's a win-win. From the taxpayer gets a big benefit on the tax side, and then Prep gets that money for their scholarships.
Right. And again, this money isn't stuff that's used for operations. This is going directly to financial aid. That's part of the requirements on our end as the organization that receives these funds, is that these funds are being used strictly for financial aid to help more families be able to afford Cathedral Prep education for their kids. But yeah, no, that's all great. I appreciate you, taking the time to talk us through that. Like we said in the beginning, it can be a little bit difficult to understand a program like this that starts to get into tax information and whatnot, but being able to break it down to simple, terms like that makes it easier to understand. So appreciate you, coming on the podcast, Katie, and answering these questions for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Rambler Podcast. This individual participation of the EITC program is really a great opportunity to help more families afford a Cathedral Prep education for their son or daughter. If you are interested in learning more about this program or would like to apply for it, please reach out to me. My email address is jimmy.smith@cathedralprep.com, or feel free to call me at 814-453-7737, extension 2294. So thank you again for listening and considering this great opportunity. God bless, and roll Ramblers.